depending. I also covered City Hall for 8 years with the Riverfront Times from '95 to 2003. So some of my questions may be a bit dated, but what we're going to do is I'm going to ask the question, and each candidate, there are 2 of them, seconds to answer, and then we'll go to the next question. We should be here about an hour or so. My daughter, Shaq, is over here. She's stretching. She's barely awake. She's going to be the timekeeper. So she's going to hold up the sign when it's a minute, 30 seconds, etc., so we can wrap it up, okay? The first question, and do we flip a coin here to see who goes first? There was an opening statement?
No, we didn't do
opening. We did go?
We're not going to do opening statement. Michael, where's Michael Allen?
Well, we'll do a closing statement at the end, okay?
All right.
The first question I have, people obviously worry about crime. Do you think crime has gotten worse in the last 5 or 10 years or not? And has local control given an alderman any more influence, or has it just given the mayor the power to hire and fire the police chief? Steve, we'll go with Steve first.
Okay, in the 8th ward, every year crime has dropped for the past 5 years. Through the fall of this year, it was down 35% during that period of time. For the year 2014, it was down 25%, and for the month of January 2015, it was already down 20%. We attribute that reduction of crime to the hard work we put in reducing the number of nuisance properties in the 8th ward. 5 years ago, we had 88 nuisance properties. We're down to 8 that we are monitoring. They generate a lot of crime associated with them. I realize in many areas in South St. Louis, crime is up. I'm listening to some of the other candidates, and that's their main complaint. We embrace hard work, nuisance property reduction, and additional strategies that the police have come up with when it comes time to solving pattern crimes. Those strategies work. With respect to the police department, we haven't seen a noticeable change in the alderman telling the captain what to do. The police department has been fairly responsive, at least the alderman I know, when we call and we ask for extra patrols, solving crimes, car break-ins, whatever the pattern crimes are. They've been very, very responsive to us. There's additional strategies we'd like to take on the road. I think what the successes that we've had in the 8th ward, that's what we should take citywide. Reducing nuisance properties will reduce crime everywhere, but it takes hard work, and that's what we've been doing in the 8th ward.
First off, I'd like to thank you all for being here this evening, coming out, checking out the debate. I want to thank Steve for allowing us to have the debate here at the Royale. The question in regards to crime in the city, you know, we keep hearing that crime's down 30% or we down, but you know, that's still too high for the city of St. Louis. If you take all the gunshot victims that we've had over the last 10 years, you could fill up Scottrade Center with them. We're having about 1,800 people are getting shot here in the city. So that's not good. We need to reduce crime even more. You tell people that crime's down, but kids are running down the street, Shenandoah, shooting at each other. We've got restaurants where people are coming out of and they're getting held up. So, you know, are we dealing with, you know, the crime that anybody would want to have? No, nobody wants any crime in the city at all. But I think that crime is still too high, not only in the city, but in the ward as well.
Following up with the police, the Civilian Review Board for the police has gotten a lot of attention lately, but there appears to be barriers in place for a board with subpoena powers. Is the Civilian Review Board without a subpoena power going to be powerful enough to make changes? We'll go with.
I think that the Civilian Review Board should have been passed in 2006. It's kind of one of those situations where you talk about being proactive versus reactive, and right now it just tends to be another situation where the city of St. Louis is being reactive. If the Citizen Review Board had been passed in 2006, probably wouldn't have had some of the occurrences that we've had. this past 6 to 8 months. So, you know, I think that it's great that it's being passed. It needs to have the subpoena power. It needs to have a separate department within the city. We need to work with the police on the body cameras and that kind of thing. But more than anything, what we want to talk to the police about more than anything is that black people need to be treated just like white people when it comes to some type of stop or that kind of thing. We've got neighborhoods in St. Louis where people are being profiled. We've got neighborhoods in St. Louis that could easily be treated just like Ferguson, and we don't want that. We don't think that that should occur in St. Louis City. We think that the police need to reevaluate how they work with the people that live in the city. This is not a police state, and we don't want a police state. We want the policemen to be our friends. We don't want to be scared of the police. We don't want them to just think it's open season on shooting people. So, you know, it comes a time where you have to decide whether or not you want to change the way things are going, or you just want things to stay the same. And they shouldn't stay the same. We've got to do better with our police force. We've got to do better with the way that we deal with each other as well. And we've got to do better with the way the police force deals with us.
Okay. I'm a co-sponsor of the Citizen Review Board bill. It's now called the Citizen Oversight, Civilian Oversight Board. It is something that's an important first step. The men and women that are police officers are your friends, they're your sons, your daughters, your moms and dads. These are good people, but the process is broken. And when the public's confidence is shook in the process, we have to restore that confidence. And by having direct civilian oversight of the police department, we'll begin to restore the confidence that people need so that the police can do their job and reduce crime here in the city of St. Louis. The bill that before us will come up again before April 19th. I am assured that President Reed, just in case, will have us in for a special session so that we can get it passed. We may or may not make those final amendments to the bill, but whatever amendments that get attached to that bill, I will be supporting the bill. I'm a co-sponsor, and we will pass it out by April 19th. And we'll begin to be able to restore confidence in the system and in the process, and let the civilians, those of you in this room that qualify, make the policy decisions that the police department needs to implement to restore the confidence in their jobs.
All right, this quote is by Todd Swanstrom. He's an UMSL professor, and it was in relation to Ferguson, but it also relates to the unrest that we experienced since August, and through also included Shaw also to some degree, although some of his points about traffic fines are mostly about the county. This is what he said on the night of the grand jury judgment. It was before it was released. He was on my radio show, as a matter of fact, when he said this. We, as a metropolitan area, should thank the protesters. The protesters have improved our civic vision. I don't think people saw the extent and the depth of the exploitation and disrespect of this whole system as it raises municipal revenues through traffic stops and court fees, which essentially tries to balance the budgets of these small municipalities, many of which are fiscally distressed, on the backs of the poorest citizens, and that usually means minorities. Basically, I want a reaction to the unrest that happened from August the 9th and through the grand jury, and how you think that that should be interpreted.
A couple of things. People had pent-up anger from not just the Mike Brown situation, but way before that, years and years of pent-up anger. People here in the city, we believe we live in a diverse community and everything is hunky-dory. In the Shaw neighborhood, we began a series of conversations just to make sure that we could talk about race openly with each other. So I think to a large part, some people in the city were a little surprised about the reaction, but we're in a lot different position here in the city than they are in St. Louis County. A couple of things. First of all, we have to start decriminalizing some of the crimes people are getting arrested for. I sponsored and worked with Alderman Shane Cohn to decriminalize possession of marijuana. We shouldn't be getting red light tickets for right turns on red light. When you look at the process that they have in St. Louis County, 34% of the municipal fines in the state come from 11% of the population. In the city of St. Louis, we're 5% of the state's population, and 7% of the municipal fines come from that. We can do better every step of the way. The protesters did a very, very commendable job respecting the residential characteristics while trying to have their voices heard in the Shaw neighborhood and along Grand Avenue. And for that, we're appreciative for all of their efforts and for them sharing their voices.
Professor Swanstrom is a friend of mine. I know him from serving on several boards with him. And I believe that he was correct in the statement that he made. I think the protesters very much so were the voice, the conscience of what was going on and what's been going on. And I think it took something like Mike Brown to actually kickstart them and to get them going. Unfortunately, somebody has to die before something like that occurs. But you know, when you talk about our elected officials and people that can be the change agents, you know, it shouldn't come to a situation where we have destruction of property or we have people protesting before the elected officials stand up and do what's right. You know, the alderman's been there 24 years. And I think this may have been the first conversations that he's been a part of after it went down. Again, we talk about proactive versus reactive. We need to be having these conversations long before this occurred. This should be something that every neighborhood gets involved with, trying to make sure that we have conversations that are not easy for everybody to be a part of. We don't want to have these conversations after somebody's been killed. We want to have these conversations to keep people from being killed. So, you know, when you talk about, well, I'm going down and discuss some things with the police department, you need to talk about how the people in the community will feel better about situations like this.
Okay, I have one more question on this more or less this topic of crime and race and problems, then we'll move on to more specific issues. Much has been made in America about income disparity and racial disparity. In the St. Louis region, the median income for Black households is half that of whites, $30,000 compared to $60,000. 8% of whites do not have a high school diploma compared to 17% for Blacks. In the region, about 9% of whites live below the poverty level, while for Blacks it's 30%. Economic segregation is seen as part of the problem. It would be feasible and possibly justified to say that the 8th Ward is one of the most economically diverse wards in the city, with multiple family dwellings and plenty of upscale houses too. Yet this has led to some friction manifested by crime and different complaints. What can an alderman do to lessen this friction?
Well, I'll tell you, DJ, when you start talking about discrepancies in pay, discrepancies in income, differences in income, socio-economical differences, Shaw and the 8th Ward is not any different than any other parts of St. Louis. I was with a group yesterday, and this group, they're doing a school in the 8th Ward or near the 8th Ward that actually has people that live in the 63110 zip code. They only want to work with their kids. They have a mission to deal with underprivileged children. Because of the way things have changed in the last 10 years in the 8th Ward, they don't have any kids that they can serve there anymore. Poor kids, they've had to leave the 8th Ward because they can't afford, their families can't afford to pay rent. Their families can't afford to buy homes there. So now they're trying to come up with a strategy how they can come in with some affordable housing so that they can live up to their mission of providing a solid education for underprivileged children. So we looked at the numbers last night. Almost a fourth of Black people have moved out of the 8th Ward. Incomes have dropped in the 8th Ward. And there are people who have higher incomes have moved in. So we're dealing with gentrification in the 8th Ward, and nobody wants to talk about that. It's kind of like the race thing. We don't want to talk about race. We don't want to talk about gentrification, but it's there. And the alderman has played a part in gentrifying our 8th Ward.
Those are some pretty harsh words. So we'll address the question. I know that Mr. McKinney had sat on the Housing Corporation Board for the past 7 years. Never raised that issue while he sat on that board. That was the Shaw Neighborhood, excuse me. It was the Shaw Neighborhood Housing Corporation. But when you look at the Shaw neighborhood, and you look at Shaw in particular, because that's what you had mentioned first, even though you think those are all apartments, many of those are owner-occupied properties. 18 years ago, Shaw Boulevard was in way worse shape than it is today. And one of the programs that we began back at that point in time was to address the worst properties in the Shaw neighborhood, corner properties and the Shaw Boulevard. We called that the Gateway to Shaw. We utilized community development block grant funds and did a significant number of renovations of the townhouse, of 4 families in the townhouses. And if you look at like 41, 15, 17, 19, and 23, they look like 2 families. They're all single families. When you drive down Shaw Boulevard, you'll see 4 families, but only every other door has a door handle. That's because that's actually owner occupied. All of those properties sold for less than $115,000. All moderate income, and every single one was actually sold to an African American. We created African American homeowners during that period of time. And if you were to look at your census and understand how the census was done in 2010, at that point in time, the 8th Ward also encompassed McCreetown, and it also encompassed Tiffany neighborhood, where I ran very well during that period of time. When we redistricted in 2002 and then in 2012, we don't do it in the exact year, the population had changed because they had changed the boundaries on it. So that's a big part of the loss that you said. Gentrification is a wedge word. I'm looking to unite us as a community. The 8th Ward at this point in time is 35% African American. We want to protect and embrace our diversity economically, socially, religious, and age.
That's up to you, man.
Okay, briefly.
So when we talk about some of these houses that were sold for $100,000 10 years ago or what have you, I know you've mentioned the fact that somebody got a house for $80,000, but did they not turn around and flip that house at $80,000 that they purchased, and now they're trying to sell it for like $3 something? So even though you say that you sell houses at a lesser expense, that you've sold houses at lesser value or lesser expense, you've also purchased properties with CDBG funds, with home funds, community development block grant money that's supposed to develop low-income housing. You've bought the properties and then sold them to a developer who now sells the house for $3 something. Has that not happened on your watch?
No, it has not, Mr. McKinney, because all of the original community development block grant funds, those funds that we used on those properties had to go to people who met the low and moderate income guidelines, which at that point in time was about $38,000 or $40,000. You can borrow 2.5 times what you make. That would be $120,000, and that was the sales price on the buildings. And if you live in the city and you see these rehabs and these gutted out buildings, the cost to redo a building in the city runs anywhere between $90 and $130 a square foot.
Let's move on to sports. Okay. Do you think Ballpark Village has had a positive impact on sales tax revenue for the city, or has it just shifted revenue away from other bars and restaurants? And was it worth the tax incentives that was given it?
I think when you look at Ballpark Village, you find, you look at 6 or 7 parking lots. You look at a building that's got a few bars and some restaurants. And I think that took away from and is taken away from some of the local bars and restaurants that are around the ballpark now. I don't think we got what we were promised. We were supposed to have some apartments. We were supposed to have some high rises. We were supposed to have some offices. We were supposed to have some retail spaces. We were supposed to have a lot more than a single building with 6 or 7 bars in it and parking lots. So no, I don't think we got our return on investment for Ballpark Village, unless they're going to do some more, and who knows when that's going to happen.
I would say that all in all, the investment in Ballpark Village was a net win for the city. I know that some of the other bars in the surrounding area have lost some business, but it's just like Steve that owns this place. If he doesn't make it nice, if he doesn't give you the amenities that you want, you won't come back. Competition is a big, big part of the real world that we all operate. I don't go to Ballpark Village because it's just too darn expensive for me. One thing you have to look at the Cardinals and understand, they are our #1 overnight tourist attraction in the city of St. Louis. And when the Cardinals are in town, they bring in an inordinate number of people to visit. We offer a variety of tourist attractions beyond the zoo, the boats, the art museums, to encourage people to spend the night. And when they spend the night in the city of St. Louis, we all do better. If you look at the hotel taxes, whenever you've been in a hotel, you pay big taxes. In a bar, in a restaurant, in downtown area, besides paying, you know, what some people would say is a high sales tax, you pay a gross receipts tax on top of that goes directly to the city of St. Louis. We are generating significantly more money than had we not done that. We have to provide an attraction to draw people here in the city of St. Louis. It is a net win.
Okay, a little more sports question here, a sports-related question. The state is behind the wheel for the new outdoor stadium, willing to issue new bonds or extend current bonds. Promoters of the new stadium have devised a way to avoid a public vote because they know it would lose. Former Chief of Staff Jeff Rainford, how does that sound?
A little bit better.
Former Chief of Staff Jeff Rainford has said no new taxes for a new stadium, but the city and county likely will be asked to increase bond payments to the old dome so the new stadium can be built with state funds. Are you against any money going to pay on the extended dome bonds?
Yeah, I'd be voting against spending any more money. $1 billion for a stadium that they play 10 games a year in. I know that they are adding soccer as a component. And I know that they're also promoting, well, you know, our payments and our costs won't go up, but the length of time in which we owe the debt would have to be dragged out years and years. And again, we'd be subject to whatever the NFL wanted 15 or 20 years from now. So I voted against the last stadium, and I'd be voting against this stadium.
Well, I'm a football fan, and I'm a fan of the Rams. And I think that, again, if we had been proactive as opposed to reactive, Stan Kroenke wouldn't be holding us hostage with the Rams. We had an agreement that we were going to keep the stadium up to a certain level. We were going to spend money to keep it up to the level, but we didn't do that. We didn't do what we said we were going to do. So now we got to decide whether we're going to build another stadium. And I'm not in favor of building a house for Stan Kroenke. He can build his own house. I think that we go in and we talk about trying to, and I don't really know all the numbers that are out there, and I don't think anybody around here knows all the numbers that they're tossing out, but I would not be in favor of spending another dollar. You know, I talk about trying to treat the Rams as a developer and we'll work with them on trying to get some property together. We'll work on the infrastructure. We'll make sure they've got water and sewer there, but I'm not going to help him build his house. He would have to build that himself.
Okay, people talk about the north-south Metrolink from North County through downtown, down Jefferson to I-55. It's popular among when you propose it. But even with Prop A money from the county, the city and the county, the local region, have to go with about half the money to finance such a thing. So it would be very expensive. Would you support a 1/4 cent or 1/2 cent sales tax in the city to hike an increase to if it was dedicated for the expansion of Metrolink?
I would really hate to obligate people that have less money to spend in sales tax. Sales tax is kind of regressive. It hurts lower income people. I'd hate to really tie that down, but the expansion of the Metrolink is a great investment, and we need to do that. So I would feel really, really hard about an additional sales tax to make that happen, but it is an investment that we need to look at. I would think that maybe we could do that with some bonds. We would need to look at that, but if push came to shove, the only way that we could make it happen would be with a sales tax, then I would have to support that. But I really would like to figure out another way to make it work other than a sales tax.
Okay, and the way that this would happen is the matter would come to the Board of Aldermen, and then we would vote to put it on the ballot, and then you would have the opportunity to determine if that is right for us. So I'll support putting it on the ballot, and I'll support your decision on whether or not we do that tax. The only caveat that I would have, one of the alternatives is to bend it and make it go under 44 just west of Vandeventer, because there's already a rail line there. It's very, very expensive if they have to start and get all of the right-of-way and the easements put in. It's not one of those things that, that you can just build it easily. You have to acquire all of the rights. This could be many, many years from now, but we do have to think about those types of long-term investments, because people that need jobs need to get to where the jobs are. We've got Cortex, Wash U, St. Louis U. We need to move people from our neighborhood to where the jobs are. And the jobs need the people to come from our neighborhoods to get to their places of employment. Is a $90,000, $100,000 a year job. We need cooks, security guards. They offer a whole array of jobs. But as part of a sustainable community, going forward, we have to entertain and properly fund mass transit.
Okay, so briefly.
One of the things that I think is a little kind of off-putting is that when we decide that we're going to be leaders in the community and we're going to provide some vision and we're going to provide leadership, it's real easy to just kind of say, let's just put it on the ballot and let the people make a decision. But as a leader, let's put it on the ballot, but then let me tell you how I feel about it. I think we should do it. I think we shouldn't do it. I'm going to support it or I'm going to be against it. I want you to vote for it. I'm going to put it on the ballot, but you're going to know how I feel starting out. So you can then say, well, I think, in other words, if I'm for it, I'm going to promote it. If I'm against it, I'm not going to be for it. Whether you vote for it or not, you're going to know how I feel about it. So I think it takes leadership. You got to be a leader. You can't just say, let the people vote off. How do you feel about it? You should be the leader to tell people, this is how I feel. I think we should do it. Get on board with me. Or I don't want to do it. Let's vote it down. But be a leader.
And to follow up, I know Mr. McKinney is a member of the 8th Ward Democrats, and he knows how we do the endorsements and we put out our ballots. And when you come to the poll in the 8th Ward, you can see the position of the 8th Ward. Everything that the 8th Ward does, I go out and I support it. So it would be disingenuous for him to suggest otherwise. As a leader within the community, I promote all of the issues that impact you and your views and your beliefs.
Okay. Initial approval of the use of eminent domain has been granted for the move of the federal NGA to North City. What has gotten less attention is that the TIF in place, the tax increment financing in place for McKee, means that half of the earnings tax taken at the site will be funneled away from the city's general revenue. Is there any way to get a side agreement to change that, or is that set in stone?
I would hope that we have a backdoor plan to get out of it. Guy's been sitting up there for over 10 years now with a $500 million investment that nothing's happened, no ground's been broken, there's no work going on, and they're still trying to assemble land. So I hope that there will be a way that we can get out of this deal with him. He's got to show us, as far as I'm concerned, that he can get something done. I mean, he hadn't done anything, and now they're talking about maybe having to spend another 30,000 or 30, was it 30 million, another 30 million to even go further. So, you know, we want to keep the jobs that the has at the Budweiser, near the Budweiser plant. We want to keep those jobs in St. Louis. But guys, you know, to keep spending money and not seeing anything come back from it, that's something that we really got to think about. I mean, this guy has a $500 million in investment that he hadn't done anything with, and now they want another 30 million. So, you know, I can't support that. I hope we have a back door, and I feel that the Board of Aldermen have prepared a back door for us to get out of this.
Okay, and I think the question is to retrieve the earnings tax money that would go to the TIF. The significant thing is those employees generate $2.4 million worth of earnings tax to the city of St. Louis. Also, they'll bring with them, when you have 3,100 people working in a particular location, they'll bring the ancillary businesses associated with the defense industry. Also, it will give them a great opportunity to actually spur redevelopment of residential areas in that part of the city. The earnings tax money that would go to the TIF is dedicated to Northside development. Congressman Clay, who's been pushing this very hard, and Tamika Hubbard, who's the alderman up there, are thoroughly convinced that those funds will be well spent. Those jobs, Congressman Clay believes, if they move to Scott Air Force Base, would have a devastating impact on the city of St. Louis. A tremendous number of city residents are employed there at fairly substantial wages. We'd like to keep that here. We won't give those monies up until they move. So the back door is if they don't move, they don't get the TIF. There is still additional room to negotiate as we go forward if there's difficulties or we become uncertain that they'll relocate here in the city of St. Louis. But we talk about jobs, we talk about taxes and services that the city delivers. All those services we deliver get paid for by taxes. We have to grow our business, keep our business, and make people feel comfortable about doing business in the city of St. Louis.
The homeless situation has gotten a lot of attention the last few months with Larry Rice. Larry Rice is a controversial figure, but the homeless situation is an ongoing problem. How do you think the city has handled that, and how do you think it should handle what happens in the next few months? Like May is the deadline for him to change his facility or quit doing what he's doing.
Larry Rice and I go back a long way. I used to do his television show on Channel 24, I believe in the old days, that was his channel. He provides a service that nobody else will. It's not that chic or cool to service homeless men. You know, he provides that service. He provides food. He provides beds. The city has taken a bigger approach to the homelessness problem. We have a continuum of care where we make sure that people get health care, mental health evaluation, job training. We put together a better package to address it more on a holistic level than ever before. That's what the mayor intends to do. The person that oversees this program, many of you in this room know, and that would be Eddie Roth. He lives in the 8th Ward. He has a great reputation for carrying through for what he says. The big beef with the Larry Rice's center is it's downtown, and those residents downtown are throwing a fit. Now they attributed any homeless person that panhandles them on the way to work or way to their car as being associated with Larry Rice, and that's not necessarily the case. And generally, it's not going to be the case because he only services 300 people a day, and I've got 3,000 homeless people there. He's obviously not the cause of the problem. And so the residents downtown have to kind of reevaluate where they're at, assess what is going to work, but getting rid of Larry Rice is not going to get rid of their problem. We as a community have to address homelessness, and I think the city has begun to take the right steps.
I think the city needs to continue to move in a very positive manner to deal with the homelessness problem that we have here in St. Louis. I think we need to use all the other resources that are out there. We need to work within the people that are in the continuum of care. There's a whole group of service providers, or a whole group of people that are looking to take care of the homeless. We need to open up more opportunities financially for them to be able to do that. Larry Rice serves a great purpose. He says that he wants to take care of the homeless. I think he needs to deal with the numbers that the rules and regulations say that he's got a 30-bed facility and he's trying to deal with 300 people. That's not doing the 300 people any service other than just maybe keeping them warm for one night. But he needs to deal with the regulations that are set up for him to run his particular facility. And in the meantime, the city needs to continue to work with other providers that deal with homelessness as well.
Bicycles, okay. The Kings Highway Viaduct is going to be closed down soon, and they were going to reroute some of the traffic over Tower Grove. That delayed the designation of Tower Grove Avenues with additional bicycle lanes. And there's some controversy about the bicycle lanes on Arsenal and the striping, so hard to follow. Generally speaking, what is the city doing with bicycle lanes, and what does it need to do, and what are the difficulties of that?
Well, I think now is the time to go ahead and do the striping on Tower Grove as this was called for originally. I think they've got an opportunity to have $50,000. If they don't do it, they're going to lose a $50,000 grant. So I would think now would be the time to go ahead and do it. Don't wait. I do know that I believe Steve is waiting to hear how the Shaw neighborhood feels about it. I think the Southwest Garden neighborhood decided that it was a good thing to do now. So I think it's a matter of whether Shaw decides that they want to see it done. But I am in favor of doing the striping and getting Tower Grove bicycle ready now. Let's not wait. Let's do it now.
All right. And I've had the opportunity, the Kings Highway Bridge is closing March 30th. Because if we don't close it down and tear it down by then, it could fall on April 1st or any time thereafter. So the issue is the short-term issue is extending the one-lane road each direction on Tower Grove and having dedicated bicycle lanes. I met with the 2 bicycle groups and the mayor's representative. We brought them all together. We talked through what we need to do to make this work. We were having a significant amount of congestion on Tower Grove north of Shaw, and a couple of things sitting down with the bicycle groups and the mayor's office was that we determined by educating the bicyclists, educating the motorists, we could reduce the congestion. And those cat paws, those little dash marks that you see on the street that says the cars can go over, many of the motorists don't know that means that, and some of the bicyclists don't. So it's a big part about educating both the motorists and the bicyclists. Immediately after that meeting about 3 weeks ago, we put in right turn arrows there, and it has reduced the congestion so that when I go to the Shaw neighborhood meeting, hopefully we can report that the congestion is reduced and we can convince the community that it's not going to add more congestion in the future, and the neighborhood association will buy into it. The 8th Ward was one of the first wards that were involved with Bike St. Louis. I received a number of awards when we first started putting together some of the master plans and the directions to get around the city of St. Louis, because it was very, very important to us. And it is important to us as a community as a whole going forward. It's part of our sustainable strategy for the city of St. Louis. Reduce our dependence on automobiles, get people on their bikes, have them move around, increase the amenities that you see day to day. The sign here.
Yeah, stop or I'll shoot, it says, yeah. We haven't shot yet, don't worry. Okay, after the 2020 census, the Board of Aldermen will go to 14 members from 28 members. What difference do you think that will make for governance and for citizens in general?
I think it's going to be unique. I was one of the sponsors of it, and I promoted it very, very hard. When I first became an alderman, the 8th Ward had 17,000 people in it. It's down to 11,000, slightly under. I mean, they just kept going down, down, down. Handling that capacity shouldn't be that hard for most aldermen. Over the years, though, the city, as the budget has tightened up significantly, we've become a response. We only address a problem when you call us. If you don't call us, we don't go out looking for burnt out street lights or potholes in your alley or rusted out dumpsters. We respond. You have to call us because we don't have the funds to do that much preventive work anymore. Part of the problem I heard from some of my constituents that were against reducing the number of aldermen was, well, I want you to be able to get that fixed immediately for me, Steve, because you always fix it. And I try to train people to utilize the Citizen Service Bureau. But what you'll find going forward is many of the aldermen won't have such a parochial view or a balkanized view of the city of St. Louis, because they will be representing a broader area. And some of the aldermen that might be full-time aldermen, it might be a challenge to balance both things as they go forward. But it's important that we do. We've got 28 aldermen. I mean, that's way too many. I actually would have preferred to go to 7 or 9. But the politics of the situation and getting the bill through and getting it on the ballot and getting the people to make a charter amendment was very, very difficult.
Oh, I think without a doubt, going from 28 to 14 is fantastic. I think it's the right thing to do. The people voted for it. You voted for it. I voted for it. I think it's perfect. The challenge is it's gonna be a full-time position for the alderman. The alderman's going to have to actually roll up their sleeves and do even more work than they're supposedly doing now. So it's going to be a full-time. I don't think you're going to be able to work part-time or full-time at one job that you have and then work part-time as an alderman. You're going to have to be a full-time alderman. And I have pledged myself to the great people of the 8th Ward that I will be their full-time alderman. So it'll be fantastic. One thing that I would say when it comes to the combining, and we need to start talking about how we think that's going to shake out. I think maybe some alder people and some committee people and some people in the wards need to start talking to each other about, how's this going to look? Let's at least start some discussions within ourselves to kind of get a feel for how this might look, or some preliminary ideas, because by the time you wait to 2020, when it has to go into effect, people ought to kind of have a good feeling about how they want that to work.
And I would just add, it'll be like Survival Island, Mr. McKinney. When you got to get rid of your neighbor, someone's got to survive. And the one thing is when we get to that point in time, it usually it will go to the legislation committee by our rules of the Board of Aldermen. And that committee will be chaired and occupied by the most senior alderman. And when you look at the wards and what we're doing here in this part of the city is we were able to combine our housing corporations and create a greater mass of common interest communities, Shaw, Southwest Garden, and Tower Grove South. And that would be a compatible fit for one ward. That's actually right now 28,000 people. It's actually would be bigger than a ward when we get to that point in time. But one thing that is important when we do redistricting it's keep neighborhoods compact and in one ward, because that makes that alderman accountable to your community. I do feel sorry for some of the neighborhoods that share 3 and 4 aldermen, because they're not going to get the pressure and the service out of their aldermen when they're chopping it 4 ways.
Okay, this is kind of an open-ended question. A lot of times, direct mail pieces list in organizations that endorse one candidate or the other, and sometimes these things change. Or the Organization for Black Struggle at one time endorsed Alderman Conway, but then they went to McKinney, then the police endorsed somebody, the fireman. Briefly explain why certain associations supported you and why they changed, if you can.
Well, we'll talk about Local 73, the firefighters. The reason that they supported me is that they feel that I'm the kind of guy that can bridge the gap with some of the problems that they're facing, that they don't feel that they're getting the direct representative in City Hall that they need, and they feel that I can be that person for them. Also, I was able to get FIRE, which is the black firefighters. I was able to get their support, and as you guys know, the 73 and FIRE, they don't really get along, but they felt that I could be the person that could help them bridge even some of their problems. So it's a matter of having trust in somebody that they feel can get some things done. One of the things that you'll find out about, the firefighters, they were very upset about not getting their pension or getting their pension reduced. And a lot of us, we don't understand that they don't get Social Security. Their pension is everything. So when you start messing with their pension, you really start hitting them in the pocketbook. And I know that the police department, those guys, they didn't give me an opportunity to even interview for their support, but they, and their pension wasn't cut, and they don't get Social Security either, but they didn't cut their pension. They cut the firefighters, they didn't cut theirs. So, when it comes to these endorsements, people have to feel comfortable with the person that they're endorsing, that they will represent them to the best of their ability, and that they will actually look after some of their concerns. That's kind of how I feel about it.
Okay, well, did I end up with or without the organization?
Okay,
well, I didn't know, but I didn't know they endorsed me, and I didn't know they withdrew it. But
okay, so
that's okay, the most important endorsement I can get is yours. I enjoy a broad range of support and a broad range of endorsements of the SEIU, the Service Employees Union, that represent the lowest paid union employees here in the region, have endorsed me, just because I have a long track record of representing their interests. I believe in paying a living wage. They've seen it. They've seen me. I fought Proposition A side by side with them against Rex Sinquefield. I believe in a living wage. I believe in prevailing wages. All of the labor unions, the construction trades, the men and women of those unions, they've seen my track record over the years. They understand that when I tell them for them or against them or how it is, I tell them the truth. I have a good labor track record. I believe in union wages. I believe in working men and women. I got all of those endorsements of the working people because of my track record, of which my opponent did not have the same track record with working women and working men.
Okay, okay, 30 seconds.
No, it wasn't that. I don't have a track record with working men and working women, because I do. But generally speaking, with these endorsements, they're all going to stay with the incumbents, because the incumbents are not going to try to stab them in the back, or they're going to lose their votes and they're going to lose their money. So these endorsements are not the end all to be all. I'm very proud that I was able to get the firefighters endorsement. I'm very proud that I was able to get OBS's endorsement. I mean, I think it's fantastic. I was able to get the endorsement of the St. Louis American. I think it was great. But, to simply say that because I don't have a track record of working people is not correct. I do have a track record of working people.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. And the one thing is, the firefighters voted against everyone. I mean, did not endorse anybody that supported pension reform. Did they? Who was there? Don't know. Okay. Well, their choice was power.
But they went over, right?
I don't even know. They didn't go with me because I supported the mayor on pension reform. But the most important thing is, would have been irresponsible of me in my position as your alderman to not have done that. And it would have been easy for me to take that endorsement and just vote their way and collect the $3,500 contribution that they made to everybody that was with them or that they endorsed.
You mean they didn't endorse power?
No,
I'm shocked.
I was shocked too.
Okay. All right. I have a question. Small businesses. What's being done to convert empty storefronts into small businesses? What can the city? What can Alderman do about that?
I really think in the Shaw neighborhood, we've had some opportunities to bring some, what I would like to say, little oases, meeting places, restaurants, bars. We've had some few coffee shops that come in, but we've missed a couple of opportunities as well to bring those kind of things to the Shaw neighborhood specifically. I know Steve feels comfortable about the work that he's done on South Grand as far as helping those guys, but you know that was really one of those things where you get out of the way and take the plan from the East-West Gateway and take the money that was available for the stimulus and you put it into play. So you know you don't want to get in the way of progress like that. So it wasn't like he thought it up and brought it to the table. It was already there. But you know it's really about planning. It's about developing your plan and then working your plan. So it's kind of like you plan your work, then you work your plan, as opposed to catch as catch can. And I think sometimes in the city of St. Louis, we still have the opinion that we've got to jump anytime some developer comes in our face, we got to jump on them, but we don't have to. You know, we're not a second city. We're a first-class city. And we can make developers do what we want them to do as opposed to us doing what they want us to do. We don't have to just jump every time that they come around. So I think we've missed some opportunities in the 8th Ward to have some smaller meeting places, some gathering places, some nice places where people can come. We've got a couple that are there, but we need to look at doing more things like that.
Okay. South Grand was an incredible, complex process of charrettes to involve the community. When we did that project, it also took Ward capital improvement funds, some matching funds, the clout of Congressman Clay, myself, with the support of the mayor, to actually make what we consider a showcase for the city of St. Louis, how to do sustainable and walkable communities. We made South Grand safer for bicyclists and pedestrians. At the same time, it was part of a smart development process, and that is the sales at those businesses went up when we reduced the width of the street and made it more friendly. And the values of the home and the adjacent neighborhoods went up. And within the Shaw neighborhood, if you look at the different plans that the neighborhood had, and I know that you were the president of the Neighborhood Association, it called for the development of corner businesses. And if you look, you've got the station at Thurman and Cleveland. You got Ristatuo. We supported ISIS. We had to jump through a lot of hoops to get her in on that corner, and incredibly new. If you want to see a great business and how they make ice cream, you'll just absolutely love this space. And bring your nieces or nephews with you too. We bought the old gas station at Clem and Shaw. We got that. We cleaned out the tanks. It'll be a great neighborhood business. And if you look at Park Avenue Coffee, which is in the 8th Ward at Columbia and Hereford, just today I helped the owner of that business get through his last zoning change that he needed to have his outdoor patio. Whenever a business owner needs help, I immediately provide it. I'm a certified public accountant. I've worked with thousands of small businesses. I understand their particular need to get into business and start generating money. That's why I jump so hard, especially for the small. And I was thinking Shannon's embroidery up on South Grand. She was getting a little occupancy license for the front part of the store. Never met the lady, but we took care of all of the things over the phone. We got her in business as fast as possible. That's what I enjoy. I love seeing successful business people. You know, Steve, he's doing well. He doesn't need any more help. As a matter of fact, you know, I was thinking I was successful. I think we helped him with facade money. Did I put that bottle cap up there on that sign? I don't remember. You know, all of the businesses of the 8th Ward, you know, we make the facade grant. At one time, this was the 8th Ward where you're sitting. And then all of his patrons used to get parking tickets on street cleaning days. But we solved that problem for him. And when he first moved in, he had a lot of problems with the neighbors, not him, but because, you know, his predecessors, you know, having problems with the neighbors. And we all sat down and worked it out. And here he is today, a very successful business. And I'm happy you're all here. You're here.
So we can blame you for Steve Smith?
Absolutely.
How sad. Okay, we had 2 more questions and we'll go to closing comments. We have to do the obligatory city-county question. I think it's been changed somewhat by the dynamics of Ferguson and August the 9th and all. But Better Together is issuing these reports about how you can save money and collaborate and cooperate, etc. I would think a lot of this, what the talk of the city of Ramsey County as a 91st city in the county and all has been stalled somewhat by all this that's going on in the last 6 months. Where do you think this is headed next, if it's headed anywhere?
Okay. Well, I would really hope that we could merge the city and the county together. I mean, this is going to be a complicated process. If there was any message that came out of the Mike Brown shooting, you know, what they're doing in those county municipalities is abhorrible. You know, those are cash registers. When you drive on I-170, when my son was 16, I picked up Grandpa at the airport. I said, look, that's Normandy, you know, a quarter mile down, it's Hanley Hills, then North Hanley Hills, then Edmondson. I said, this is a cash register here. You know, if we merge the city and the county together, there will be savings. There's all kinds of small, you think we have parochial politics here in the city of St. Louis. You've got all of these little municipalities, all with their little power bases, and no way to raise revenue except through these types of things. And you know, you think, okay, but then they tell you in St. Louis County, well, we don't have an earnings tax. Well, yes, they do. They got a cash register on I-170 or on Olive or 270, wherever the case is. These people need money. They're supporting two tiers of government that doesn't necessarily have to be supported. This would be one of the most important things that we can do and provide for the future generations here of this region is to support the merger of the city and the county. And even in the city, we have a lot of local politicians, you know, many of them that were against reducing the size of the Board of Aldermen, feel like they're going to lose power or some kind of power base if we merge and we'll get blent in and lost in St. Louis County. We would still continue to be a city. There'd be fewer cities, but all of our county offices would now be real county offices shared with St. Louis County. We would save an inordinate amount of money just in the administration of many of the county functions, because the city of St. Louis, just for the last time, is we're both a city and a county within the 60 square miles. We're a small geographic city.
Yeah, I think it's imperative that we talk about merger between the county and the city, but we want to make sure that we don't disenfranchise any voters when this occurs. We don't want to lose any of the influence that people of color have in the city. We don't lose any of the influence that people of color have in the county either. So we want to protect their opportunity to be a part of the system. But you know, we spend a ton of money as city people shopping in the county, gallerias, South County, whatever, and we're not getting any of that money here in the county. We're spending a lot of money outside the city that if we were a part of the county, we'd be getting some of that sales tax revenue coming our way. Obviously, you start talking about, you know, fee offices and county offices and replicating things that we shouldn't be dealing with. We should get that straightened out. But, you know, we got to make sure that we don't lose the opportunity for people to be able to be represented at City Hall, at county, where they meet. We want to make sure that people have an opportunity to be counted for.
Okay, this is the last question, then we'll have a closing comment from each of you. If someone asked you how the 8th Ward would be different if you were elected compared to your opponent, what would you say? If someone asked you how the 8th Ward would be different if you were elected compared to your opponent, what would you say?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. How the 8th Ward would be different is that it would have a process that would be driven from the bottom up. There would be a whole lot more listening going on to hear what the people want to do. There would be a whole lot more people involved in what goes on in the 8th Ward when I become the alderman. We're going to listen to people Southwest Gardens. We're going to listen to people at Tower Grove East. We're going to listen to people in Shaw. And that doesn't mean that we're just going to have a meeting for the neighborhood association. It might be different blocks. It might be different opportunities for the neighborhood to meet together, but we're going to really listen to what the people want to do. So the people that vote for me in the 8th Ward, your voice is going to be heard. It's not a matter of my way or the highway or a certain group of people driving what goes on. It's going to be your voice. I'm going to be your voice at City Hall.
The 8th Ward will continue to get better. I have the seniority, the experience, and the proven track record to reduce crime, to make the significant changes that you've asked me in your various neighborhood plans, to provide the resources that you wanted in your community to make it better, whether it's South Grand or Southwest Guard or the Shaw neighborhood. Crime will continue to go down because I will do that hard work, and I'll continue to close down those nuisance properties. And I'll continue to redevelop the houses within the 8th Ward and preserve the historical architectural characteristics of our community. I'll carry through on all of the historic overlays that I work to put in place so that we can get more houses renovated and reduce the cost to those of you that are doing it, because now you'll be able to apply for Missouri Historic Tax Credit. I have that proven record that 4 years from now, you'll say, we've come even further than we were before. And when if you look at, and I understand crime is a very, very important issue here within the city of St. Louis, but by making all of these changes that we've made and all of these accomplishments working with you and your neighborhood group, we've reduced the crime. Our neighborhoods, the Tower Grove neighborhoods, 2 of the last 4 years have been picked the best place to live by the RFT in the area. That was hard work. That was you working with me. And I'll keep doing it because you've seen that I can do it. And we'll continue to make strides in our neighborhoods.
Okay, that may have sounded like a closing statement, but there's still a closing statement coming. Okay, I want to thank our 2 candidates for coming here tonight and being here in public to discuss these issues. And you'll have a couple minutes to close it up for your conference.
Oh, I'm first. That's great. Look, I appreciate being here. Steve's enjoyed himself. I hope all of you have enjoyed yourself, and I thank you for coming out on such a cold night. I enjoy being the alderman for the 8th Ward. It's an important part of the public service that my dad taught me that I needed to give back to the community. Over the years working with you, your block captains, we've reduced crime. We've shut down those nuisance properties. Working with you, We did $73 million of new housing in the 8th Ward in the past 9 years, during the toughest economic times that you've ever seen in your lifetime. We did the South Grand Streetscape project. We did the Vanderventer Avenue project. In both cases, making it pedestrian friendly, bicyclist friendly, increasing values of homes, smart development. We put those things in place. And during this last 3 years, this is a residential ward. We had 86 new business licenses issued in the 8th Ward, 20 new home occupancy waivers in the last 2 years in the 8th Ward to meet the needs of modern society and technology that you can work from your home. What I am saying is I have the proven ability, the leadership to make your family safer, protect your home's value, and then continue to improve the quality of your life. Thank you.
Well, I want to again thank you for coming out to the debate tonight. It's been a pleasure to meet some people for the first time, but it's also been a pleasure to see some of my friends, and I hope that I can become a friend of some of you as well. This is very important. It means a whole lot to what's going on in our community. Being the alderman, I've been a mayor before, I've been an alderman before. I have the leadership ability to get things done in our ward. But our ward needs a new voice. Our ward needs a new vision. Our ward needs to be involved with the people of the ward. We have bricks and mortar. We have great housing stock. We have architectural buildings that are in great shape. But we need to talk about things that we can do to help people. We have kids running around our ward that don't have any direction. We need to talk about how we can open up some of our schools to open up longer so that we can do some mentoring, some tutoring for the kids. We have parents that would like to take some extracurricular school classes. We need to do Spanish for a second language, English for second language. We have things that people really want to get involved with, and those are the things that we need to emphasize right now. I feel that without doing things that are going to help people, we're going to just continue to see people leaving our ward because people they're not going to have jobs that are going to be able to stay there and pay the rents. They're not going to be able to buy the houses that are there. So we need to work with our people. I think that we have what I've said originally, the 3 C's: community, children, and commercial. With the children and families, we need to do things for children and families. For our community, we need to get back to having those good sit-down block parties where you get to meet and greet your neighbors, talk to them, learn who little Johnny is, who Jane is, so that when they become 16, 17 years old, you don't have to worry about them causing you trouble because they know who you are. Go to the schools and mentor them, talk to them, learn who they are. Those are the things that make the community worthwhile. Those are the things that we want to work toward. We want to make life better for the people that live in our community. And as your alderman, I can help make those things happen. I have the ability and the leadership to make those things happen. I appreciate you being here, and I appreciate your vote come March the 3rd. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming. Let's hear it from the candidates and the one, the only Steve Smith.
Thank you, Steve. All right, we're done.